This is his third time joining us. We consider him a friend of the channel. We love what he is doing in our space. We love what Hedera is doing. So let's bring him on. The co-founder of Hedera Hashgraph and the co-CEO of Swirled Labs, Mr. Mance Harmon. Mance, how are you doing, my friend?
Hi, guys.
Hey,
I'm doing well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. We know you're extremely busy. We just wanted to take the time to really thank you for your time and joining us today. What an amazing day to have you on. But Mance, before I get into anything Hedera or crypto related, I have to get your opinion here, okay? You're a very methodical person. This Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, Vegas odds are out.
Is it
okay?
real?
Vegas odds are out. Who you got your money on, Mance?
No, look, Elon's got the size and the weight. Zuckerberg, I believe, is probably going to be more nimble. And if you take him at his word, he actually fights, right? He trains and it actually is into martial arts. So I'm still skeptical the whole thing is going to happen at all. I would love to see it. Like I think most people would love to tune in. I certainly would tune in. But I don't know. I think Elon's got the size. That means a lot.
I agree. But Mark is a black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I mean, and he's got the age on his side. I don't know. I want to see Elon win, but
if it was strictly boxing, Elon's the weight plus the reach, I would lean more that direction. But
you got grappling in there.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't see Elon being that nimble. So,
but we're with you, Mance. We would definitely pay to see that as well. Now, Mance, I am so excited to have you on today. Big news came out today with FedNow, and I'm just going to go ahead and share the article so people can see visually what I'm talking about here. FedNow adopts distributed ledger technology micropayment partner, which is drops for retail transactions on Hedera Hashgraph. This is the official website from the FedNow, Drop.inc. Mance, tell us about this partnership. How long has this been in the works for? How excited are you guys? And what is that going to change for micropayments, for FedNow, and potentially for Hedera?
Well, this technology has been being developed by Sushil Prabhu, who is the CEO. I've known him for years now, and I've known about the project that he's been pursuing. He's focused on real-time payments, initially working with banks, just an RTP, enabling RTP. When you think about real-time payments, whether it's the banks or it's FedNow, the tech that they have, generally speaking, is just the rails, right? It's just the payment rails. But when it comes to all of the additional technology that has to be built on top to create a solution that makes it possible for merchants to be sending payments to each other, the user interface and all of the additional trappings of a solution that are on top of just transferring tokens from one account to another account. That's the value that Drop provides. And my understanding is that they started talking to FedNow back in March. And so it's moved very quickly. The announcement by FedNow, I think perhaps was a little bit unexpected that it was dropping today. And so of course, there's a lot of excitement about it. What does it mean? It means that there is now further validation that the market really does care about real-time payments. There's still a long way to go in terms of rolling the whole solution out and achieving the adoption that we all hope will be achieved. But it's not years away. It's being rolled out through the end of the year, perhaps into next quarter per Sushil. And what does it mean for Hedera and the market? Well, for Hedera, it means many millions of accounts that will be built or created rather on the platform. Everyone that would use the technology would end up creating an account on the Hedera network. It would be transparent to them. Of course, they wouldn't understand necessarily what's going on, which is what we hope would happen, right? Ultimately, it's all infrastructure that we're building. These layer one protocols, including Hedera, we're plumbing. And you don't really want to think about the plumbing when you're using the tech, the solution. But nevertheless, it would result in many millions and millions. Well, every user would end up with an account on Hedera, and every transaction would flow through Hedera. So it's a combination of the Hedera consensus service as well as the tokenization service, and it would end up being many millions of transactions per day at scale. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal for Hedera. It's a big deal for the industry, and we're excited to see that FedNow had the the position that they're confident enough in the company at Drop and in Hedera that they decided to go ahead and make an announcement.
Yeah, and micropayments is something that not a lot of people talk about, but that is kind of the future. You have Elon Musk and X, and being able to like tip content creators in micropayments, and it's not practical to pay these 2, 3, 4% credit card fees. And so it's just amazing to me that out of all the layer ones to choose from, they went with something like Hedera. I believe Robin had a question for you, man.
Well, no, I was just gonna kind of expand my thoughts. Is that upon research, because the FedNow is essentially a solution to the outdated fiat system that we have, or particularly Swift, where payments move slowly, and this was the government's solution to that. And upon doing research, it was pretty clear and evident upon launch, because obviously it's a competitor. We want to do our due diligence. Didn't see much of anything that related to blockchain technology. And so for us, it was more of a foregone conclusion. I think that the broader crypto ecosystem kind of all assumed like, hey, this is just a ledger run by the United States government that speeds up payments, and maybe it's a competition to blockchain. And then lo and behold, we get this news that drops today, and we're plugged into the Hedera ecosystem. Kind of went over our heads. So what a pleasant surprise. And I think that kind of speaks more about what people are thinking about with the FedNow, right? Is that, hey, this is a government entity, and then you have two camps. You have, hey, this is the government, this is fiat. Then you have the crypto, passionate people that don't really want to integrate the two. And I think it's coming whether you want to or not. So not particularly a question, but I just wanted to just expand on that. I think it's pretty awesome to see this. I didn't see this coming myself personally. So I'm just enthusiastic about it all.
Now, Mance, whenever we have crypto companies that either help or partner with government entities or tradition, you hear the super loud spoken crypto people, oh my God, this is not what blockchain is supposed to be. And they start fretting. We saw it happen there was another company that partnered with the government or FedNow or Ripple, right? They're partnering with banks to help, the payment infrastructure. What do you say to those people? For me, it's like, look, if we believe in the technology and how it can change the world, where else should we want it to start than at our own government, right? To make it more efficient?
Well, look, I mean, when it comes to the tech, to be clear, to my knowledge, Hedera is not directly involved in the work with FedNow, which is exactly the way you would hope this would work, right? We've got the layer one, which is Hedera, providing the plumbing to enable a solution. And then in our ecosystem, there is a company, Drop, that has created a solution, and Drop is out there doing what you would expect developers that are building businesses on top of Hedera to do, to find markets to sell their solutions into. And it turns out that they're working with FedNow. It's not surprising that Hedera is the layer one that is being used for this application, because it has a lot of advantages, right? It's got fantastic performance. It's got fixed costs, really ultra low fixed costs. There's no variability in the cost per transaction based on what the token price of HBAR is. That we've eliminated that as a problem. It's very green for those that care about these things. We're leading in terms of being the greenest infrastructure out there. So I'm not surprised at all that Hedera would be considered for the platform for this. And it's great to see that our ecosystem members are out there being successful in building on top of us and partnering with not just the government or the banks, but across the board. We see a lot of adoption across the board.
I think that's a great perspective, Mance. And like I said, I know people have a hard time trusting the government, but again, I'm going to say it again. The technology, we all believe in it. We believe what companies like Hedera are doing. Government should be the first ones that we want to be on the blockchain, to be transparent, to be held accountable. Mance, I want to shift from FedNow to our recent partnership. Hyundai and Kia unveiled blockchain AI solution to track carbon emissions. Man, when we shared this news, I believe it was last week or a couple weeks ago, this was pretty exciting. We always have this discussion, Mance, on our show. What sector of traditional finance or business will blockchain come to first? Is it going to be supply chain? Is it going to be micropayments? Is it going to be, and for you guys, this carbon emissions, tell us about this partnership and just what it could potentially come to and what it could potentially do for the automotive industry, the blockchain industry, and any other industry you think it can have an impact on.
Yeah, well, for years now, I've been talking about the value that blockchain and Hedera specifically could have for supply chain generally. And I would always talk about the specific use case that it comes to my mind. You have raw materials flowing into a supply chain for a company that's going to build sneakers, for example. And those raw materials could be represented by tokens. And then as those tokens flow through the supply chain, they can be used by the manufacturer, exchange in a DeFi context with, for getting a capital loan, or perhaps further down the supply chain, you could use the tokens to get product insurance, and then ultimately you sell the products, the sneakers in this case, crates of sneakers, and they flow to a distributor, and then you get in exchange for that an accounts receivable that takes the form of a token, and then you use that token again in the context of DeFi, and you factor it so that you effectively sell that AR, that accounts receivable, at a discount, and you get more cash flow. It's just revolutionizing the way finance can be done in the context of supply chain. Layered on top of that is ESG. If you have that kind of transparency about what's going on, you can see with some degree of specificity that I'm describing of the flow of each of those products and components that are being developed into the larger product. If you see how all of that is happening in real time, you can do better measurement of the carbon that is being used, consumed, or created as a part of this process, which you in turn can turn around and create, say, emissions tokens that represent how much carbon has been used. You can sell those emissions tokens on a carbon exchange, purchasing credits to offset those emissions tokens. You can just sort of get a feel for how all of this can change both finance and give us better insight into ESG related items. And that's what we're seeing here, right? So what we're seeing here with Hyundai and the Hyundai group generally, but Kia and others, is they're taking this idea and they're applying it to their supply chain and capturing that same type of information so that they get that transparency and look through into the carbon that is being produced as a result of their manufacturing process. It's exactly that notion that I've been describing for years, and now we're beginning to see it firsthand. And by the way, it should be no surprise to your listeners. These are not council members, right? And
Right.
I think that's an important point. We have giant council members, global 500, global 1,000 council members that are developing and building products on Hedera. But what we have here is Hyundai, the Hyundai Motor Company, that is building, because Hedera provides the best solution for the use case that I just described. And we have a strong focus on enabling transparency for ESG related data. And so that's it. I mean, they are falling into this sort of theme of using Hedera for supply chain use cases related to ESG.
No,
And
I'll say that what I'm excited about with this with this particular carbon emission data is that I'm seeing this space evolve to where you have a decentralized committees, right? Or you're going to have for the first time committees and organizations that operate internationally that aren't controlled by a single person or a government. And so, when we talk about ESG,
or like a CEO.
yeah, CEO. When we talk about ESG, for example, there are a handful of companies that pretty much make a lot of the decisions or the rules for this. And I think that what I'm open, what my eyes are open to, is that we're going to get industry standards, and we're going to have real-time data pumped into these committees and organizations, whether it's for carbon emissions or for peace, electricity. I don't know. We can expand. We can sit here and hypothesize all day about it, but at the end of the day, I'm really excited the fact that we're going to have organizations that can set criteria for companies, nation states, and then we can aggregate data in a decentralized fashion
In real time.
in real time without the influence of power and the corruption of politics. And I think that we're turning a corner on.
And that's kind of why I said, hey, we should want government entities and banks to get on the blockchain, because this is stuff that happens, right? Not one person controls. But I think you hit the nail on the head, man. It's not like it was Boeing, who is already a council member, that's starting to build on Hedera. These are companies that up to my understanding, have had no exposure or haven't been in the Hedera ecosystem. So I think that says a lot about Hedera, what you guys have done. And
then obviously it's not just even so much of a partnership. It's just like, hey, what is the most efficient way, or what is the most ideal solution, out here in the markets? And if that's the most efficient answer, then I think that's where the natural markets are going to gravitate.
But we know with
to.
all these L1s out there, there's so much to choose from, and it says a lot about what you guys are doing and what you guys have done. Now, Mance, I do want to ask you about this is, I pulled this up from the HBAR Foundation. I do want to share this. Migrating the largest user of MasterCard provenance to Hedera with Fresh Supply Company. Now, in March, there was an announcement, FSCO, Fresh Supply Company, which is the largest user of MasterCard provenance, that had migrated to a private MasterCard blockchain to the public Hedera network. And then last week, they announced the integration of the Continuity API. What is this? Can you break it down for us, Mance? Because even me personally, I'm just having a hard time understanding as far as what exactly this is going to do. What is it going to change in the payments market? So maybe educate me and everyone watching on this news.
Yeah. Well, this follows the same theme that we were just talking about. First off, they've moved away, which is interesting, right? They've moved away from a private blockchain to a public network for the solution. And why did they do that? They did that because at least they stated that they did that for several reasons. One was the governing council. They trust the governance of Hedera. And I've always said, going back to 2017, that when it comes to Hedera specifically, the tech is important, but I've always believed that the governance ultimately is going to be equally important, and perhaps even more important, as the industry begins to mature. When you have major organizations, multinational organizations that are building out their solutions, they care deeply that the platforms that they're building on top of are well managed, and they know that we have this governing council that is doing a good job, and it's managed, I should say, by peers of theirs, that sort of thing. So they care about the governance. They cared about the fixed costs per transaction. That's another statement that they made. And they care about the commitment that we have to making ESG reporting credible and providing the transparency that's needed for ESG reporting through the use of our technology, not just the layer one of Hedera itself, but also the Guardian, which is a tool that is being adopted very broadly now by the industry for management, reporting, and verification of ESG related items, data items. Now, what are they going to do with this? Well, it turns out that what they care about is providing the transparency into the flow of product through the supply chain. And why is that? Because those that are financing the flow of that supply, the financiers that are involved in the agri-food value chain, they care, right? It's been very difficult for them as the people with the money that are providing the financing for the ecosystem to get transparency into exactly what's happening through that supply chain. But if you have all of the players in the supply chain participating in the solution that is on this shared database, if you want to think of it that way, which is Hedera, that means that the financiers have transparency into the transactions, and it gives them more certainty about what what the risks are that are associated with the supply chain as they're providing the financing for various parts of it. So there are a lot of features that can flow from that. You can set up automation so that payments are automated as certain triggers are met. When certain milestones are met through the production or the processing of the food, as it were, then you can have payments automatically released. You can track things like when does a cow get turned to beef, or when does milk get processed into cheese, etc. You can look at transactions associated with customs or fulfilling of standing orders, etc., that sort of thing. So again, it's just another use of Hedera for supply chain. There's in nearly all of these supply chain use cases, there is an ESG component because it's just such a natural layer on top that can be used when processing all of this data in real time, and that's what's going on there.
Is this not only just more efficient, or is this just, because I think that's the obvious here, is it's more efficient for data storage, management, and tracking. But is it at the end of the day cheaper? Is it cheaper to operate in this manner than, say, the traditional way, or are they paying a premium more or less to have everything centralized in a decentralized way?
Well, there are two aspects to that. One is, what are the costs associated with using that private blockchain network? And to be honest with you, I don't know what the cost structure was for the MasterCard solution. So I don't know what the real costs there are to the customer. So I can't speak to that. But what I can say is that using Hedera for nearly any application is rather inexpensive relative to all the alternatives, right? Because Hedera is so efficient, and you can pay on a transaction by transaction basis, denominated in dollars, again, not dependent on the price fluctuations of HBAR. We do provide a great option there when it comes to a predictable cost structure for any solution that's being built. So there is certainly that. There are costs associated with managing a private blockchain, and most of those costs are being outsourced to us because the governing council is doing the equivalent. You don't have to provide the governance. Any blockchain, if you stand up a shared database of any form, whether private or public, you end up having to perform the same functions that our governing council performs today in the Hedera network. And so if you're moving from a private network to a public network, then you're effectively outsourcing all of that function to Hedera. And as I've already mentioned, you can do it at a really good price point.
Mance, we want to thank you again for joining us. This is your third time. We hope you have a great time when you're on it, because we truly enjoy having you on. Your knowledge, the way you explain things, and you're just a fun person to talk to. And so,
And we got to get you in studio one of these days too. So make sure if you make your way out to Las Vegas, come hang out with us. I'll grab dinner.
I'll do that.
Yeah.
yeah,
That sounds
so
good. We'll do it live in studio.
that would be it. I'm counting on that. Okay, we're really excited. So that being said, Mance Harmon, thank you again, my friend. We look forward to having you on again soon. Enjoy the rest of your week, and thank you so much.
Okay, guys. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you.
Of course.
Take care.
Pleasure's all ours.